This video will bring you the newest information on the weather patterns set to move across the country in the coming days. That includes July 4th and the July 4th weekend. Let's start with a look at what is set to be going on in the atmosphere as we go through the next couple of days. Specifically, as we go into Thursday, July 3rd and July 4th, you can see that there is going to be a big area of oranges and reds and moving across parts of the central and eastern U.S. What do the oranges and reds mean? That means that there is a push northbound in the jet stream, as I just indicated with the arrows. You can see some of the tighter lines coming together, and that is really going to happen all the way and up through northern parts of the USA and through southeastern Canada. As that occurs, that means that we are going to be seeing warmer than average temperatures allowed to lift north because of the fact that the jet stream is so far north. In addition to that area of northbound pushing in the jet stream, there will be an area where we see the jet stream actually pushed south a little bit. That is going to be through parts of the west where we see some of these whites and even blues indicating some troughing. As we see that dip in the jet stream out west pushing up against some of our ridging in central parts of the country, that will mean those zones will be getting active as we go through at least the next couple of days and even beyond. Here's a closer look at the general atmospheric pattern trend and how it will affect the surface in the next few days and even into the July 4th weekend. Starting with Thursday, again, you can see the beginning of that ridge already taking place as we see the jet stream forced way north over central parts of North America. The only dips will be moving through the west and out into the plains, and especially in the northeast, at least for Thursday, where we will get a brief cool down and some stronger storms as that moves in. Once we get into July 4th, a lot of the eastern U.S. will have cleared out. We'll see the ridging moving in there. In general, we will just see some stronger jet stream energy moving out of the west and into a big ridging setup over the central and eastern U.S. by the time we go through the middle to the back half of our July 4th weekend. That means zones will be getting increasingly active amidst warmer than average temperatures. Before I dive deeper into this video, here's a reminder that many of the maps I use are from Weatherbell. There is a free trial link to Weatherbell down in the description. Check it out. Let's visualize what that jet stream trend that I was just talking about means for the actual temperature trends closer to the surface over increments in the coming days. Starting with a look at Thursday into Friday, you can see that especially the north central U.S. and the upper Midwest will be most affected by the ridge that will be in parts of southern Canada. In the deeper reddish shade there around the Dakotas and Minnesota, Thursday and even the July 4th timeframe could be well above average in terms of temperatures, even by 10 plus degrees. On the contrary, there will be an area of some cooler air diving down out of Thursday into Friday into the northeast U.S. with a brief dip in the jet stream. I don't know if you noticed it on that last graphic, but that is where we're going to get that better chance for some quick storms Thursday into Thursday night before the quick cool flash, where we will see more consistent troughing into parts of the western U.S. and the Four Corners region. That's where we're, of course, going to get a lot more in the way of some cooler air behind the dipping in the jet stream. Some of that could try to make a run into the plains where we will have been seeing the ridge to finish the week. That's going to be by the time we get into the weekend. So Saturday and Sunday, July 5th and July 6th, we're going to see a little bit of cooler air trying to slide east into the plains with troughing also doing the same. However, that's also going to push the warmer air in the ridge a bit further east. That means the Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, a lot of the Northeast. It will be your time to shine with more in the way of very intense heat. Again, the intense heat will start Thursday and Friday in the north central U.S., especially in comparison to average. You can see how warm it is going to be there with a look at these afternoon highs that are projected by the National Digital Forecast Database. July 3rd is going to see temperatures well into the upper 80s and in many cases the 90s from eastern Montana, eastern Wyoming, and northeast Colorado all the way through most of the north central states. That even includes parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and northern Illinois. 90 degrees is a lot more normal, and that's why temperatures should be around average, as I noted on my graphic, for around Thursday into Friday from the lower Mississippi Valley over to the mid-Atlantic. Back out west, notice some of the higher elevations will be cooler. We'll see even some 60s and 70s in places like Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming's highest peaks around Thursday into Friday. Here we go into the Friday timeframe, July 4th, again, much warmer than average, especially the further north you go, as 90 in Minnesota is a lot further above average than a 92 in a place like Texas or Louisiana. As the ridge pushes east this weekend, that's where we're going to see some of our most anomalous heat now moving over into places like the Great Lakes, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. This zone I'm circling, that's where temperatures could be upwards of 10 degrees above average for our Saturday afternoon high. 90 to about 96 degrees with a higher heat index value. That's going to be very common in Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia on Saturday. And then into Sunday, in the northeast U.S., it will be even hotter. All the way on up towards Caribou, Maine, it could be well into the 80s. We'll see plenty of 90s through the New England states. Some of this warmth all the way back down to the south central U.S. will at least be around to slightly above average, as well as we see plenty of 90s still rolling through. Just because 95 is something a Mississippian might be more used to than a Michiganian, it doesn't matter, it's still very warm. Is it Michiganian or Michigander? It's one of those two anyway. You let me know down in the comments if you live there or if you know. Let's move on with a look at the future radar at this time as we push things into our Thursday, July 3rd of 2025. This overview indicates that there will be many active weather areas across the U.S. The Carolina coast, the Georgia coast getting into Florida. There will be some tropical activity trying to develop there in the coming days. At the minimum, that means some heavy storms in the coastal zones in particular. That could result in some flooding. We will also see the potential for some flooding, isolated severe weather, and mainly just some storms really consistently rolling through back through parts of the Four Corners region and into the south central plains over the next couple of days with jet stream energy there. The areas with the best chance for severe weather on Thursday, though, one of those is going to be as we see a front moving into the northeast ahead of that brief cool down. Then as we go through Thursday night, storms will erupt over parts of the north central plains. Some of those will have the potential to be strong to severe with damaging winds, hail, and possibly isolated tornadoes. Remember, the general jet stream trend is going to be sending energy out of the west and into the plains. That means that as we go into the time that you want to be shooting off your fireworks, nature will be providing some natural fireworks for you in some cases on our Friday night. That is going to include some of the states that I'm about to list. Possibly out of eastern Oregon through parts of Idaho and Montana, there could be some thunderstorm action with some troughing moving through there, especially through eastern Montana, a lot of Wyoming, the Dakotas, Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa, back into Kansas. I think natural thunder is going to have at least about a 50-50 shot of stealing the show as we go through some point mid to late evening on our July 4th. Even through some parts of the lower Great Lakes, mid-Mississippi Valley, back to the southern plains, there could be some disruptions there. Then, of course, in the southeast, we'll continue to be watching that system close to the Georgia and Florida coast producing that thunderstorm and rainfall activity. Most of the rest of the east, though, should be dry for your fireworks show that you want to shoot off on our Friday evening. So that's going to be good news for those of you who want to do that. The same will go into Saturday, a nice day over a lot of the east while we continue to watch the north central U.S. get active. Eventually, that jet stream energy will be pushing more across the northern and eastern U.S. Into the areas that have the ridging. By the time we get towards the end of the weekend, that is going to result in our general front that will have been in the north central plains around Thursday, Friday, getting towards places like the mid-Mississippi Valley, the lower Great Lakes, and the northeast. In addition to some areas seeing the potential for severe weather, flooding will be a concern for many more as we go through the coming days. By the time we get to the end of the time frame I was just talking about, so through our July 6th, you can see there will be quite a bit of rain extending anywhere from southern New Mexico and parts of Texas, all the way on up, especially through parts of the nation's midsection and back into Montana. And any of the zones where you're seeing those blues, and then especially the yellows and oranges, upwards of a half an inch to an inch of rain could occur in widespread fashion. Some spots could get upwards of 2 to 3 inches of rain in locally highest spots. That's especially going to target the north central U.S. where we get that jet stream energy really working through for multiple days. Be on the lookout for flooding in the higher rain total forecast zones. Another zone where we're going to especially have to watch flooding over the coming days is going to be right along the Florida Peninsula, Georgia coast, and Carolina coast region. Many spots along the Carolina and Georgia coast will at least get an inch or two of rain. That will result in isolated to scattered in flooding. Florida could get upwards of 2 to 5 inches of rain over a lot of the peninsula. That means whether you're in Orlando, Tampa, or even down towards Miami, flooding could be a big concern even as we go into the weekend. Here's a look at what I have saved for the end of this video, and that is a specific focus on the severe storm outlook from the Storm Prediction Center for Thursday and Thursday night. There's 2 risk zones to watch. One is over parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, and even parts of Montana. The other one is where we also have a level 1 to level 2 of 5 threat in the northeastern U.S. Both of these zones where we have the marginal and slight risk are being driven by a wind and hail threat. Isolated tornadoes cannot be ruled out, though. Taking a quick but in-depth look at the severe weather setup in the northeast for our risk zone area, we are going to have a modest trough in the jet stream elevating winds in the atmosphere. Whenever you're seeing at least modest to strong jet stream winds like this moving over a zone with a severe weather risk, that means that these winds are expected to help in producing storm downdrafts, or where the cumulonimbus cloud producing your thunderstorm pushes a stronger gust of wind not only through the atmosphere, but also that gets down to the surface. The storms will be allowed to develop as we see at least weak to moderate surface storm fuel present. Back out in the north central plains, especially through the Dakotas and then into far northern Minnesota, a weak piece of jet stream energy moving through could help in supporting our storm initiation and intensity. All it takes is a weaker end piece of jet stream energy like what I just showed when you have this level of strong instability that's going to be in place. In the last graphic that I showed involving the storm energy on a scale of about 0 to 6,000 in the northeast, many values were around 1,000 to 2,000. In the north central plains, it's going to be around 2,000 to 4,000 late on our July 3rd. That's plenty enough to support robust updrafts. The first dose of organized severe weather out of our risk zones on Thursday is likely going to be in the northeast. As we do see that cold front moving in during the middle of the afternoon, we'll likely see storms firing on up in scattered fashion anywhere from Presque Isle there on the Maine Canada border, all the way down through Bridgeport in a place like Connecticut, points in between as well. Damaging wind gusts of 60 miles per hour and hail of around 1 inch in diameter should be isolated in a lot of these storms. The coverage of the damaging winds and hail should be a little bit more scattered through the mid to late afternoon, though, coming out of eastern PA, southern New York, and then even towards the New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut vicinity. As we get towards sundown, a few more storms could get closer to the coast in a place like Boston or maybe even Providence, Rhode Island. Otherwise, things should be winding down in the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast by the time the sun is setting. Elsewhere, though, in the north central plains, we will just be seeing our risk ramp up as the sun goes down. Storms may initiate through parts of eastern Montana and western parts of the Dakotas as we go through the mid to late evening. And then as we go into the night, we'll likely see damaging winds, hail, and a couple of tornadoes being possible as storms lift from the southwest to the northeast. It might be an overnight type threat in places like Grand Forks, for example.
One Nation weather.